yet. It needs to be in that broth for at least 2 hours by my...
I think part of what happens is that as it expands, there are little holes there where the broth gets captured.
Yeah, it gets the flavors that are in the broth get pulled in. So you've got onion and garlic, celery, plus fresh onion, and your saltiness of your soy, that little bit of a caramelized flavor that comes with the soy that goes in there, and it makes a really nice, and if anybody wants, you can come up after and I'll cut you a little piece and you can see what it tastes like when it's just hasn't been anything done with it yet.
Have you ever tried mixing nutritional yeast with the gluten flour before you add the water to it? You put nutritional yeast in it?
Uh-huh. There was 2 tablespoons
okay.
of yeast in it. Yeah, I even, before I had this recipe, I used to put it even in the broth. Now, I want to hand you these, and I want you to go through a little bit of what's in them. I know that you're anxious to get your hands on the handouts. Can you pass those out for me, Harry?
I certainly can.
The first page, you'll notice when he hands it to you, I'm going to move a couple things here so I don't stick my papers in the middle of it. The first page that you see, it says resource list. These were some of the things, Harold sent me a couple of links to some good places for some recipes. And I looked up a few others of my own. There's one on the back as well. Some of the sites that I got information from were really amazing. The one that I put the little screenshot in there of Virtual Vegan, this lady has the most fantastic sounding recipes. I've got to try some of them. But if you go on her website right now, she has a thing where you can click on this, send it to me, planning Thanksgiving, and she will send you every day a different set of recipes. The first day was appetizers, the second one was salads, the third one was sides, and then it was entrees, and then it was desserts. And they were all vegan. They were all really nice recipes. I was really tickled because she kept sending them to me. And I'd look at them every day and go, ooh, I gotta try this one, and I've gotta try that one. In fact, I have some of them printed off already because I want to try them. But Forks Over Knives, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Forks Over Knives. There's a really good movie called Forks Over Knives that explains why a vegetarian diet is better, or I should say a plant-based diet, and that was something I wanted to. A vegetarian is a person who does not eat meat and sometimes other animal products. Most vegetarians will still eat some dairy or some eggs, but they probably aren't eating anything that had a mother, okay? I always used to laugh when I would go out to restaurants and they would bring me a baked potato with bacon and all the goodies on top, and I'd say, I'm a vegetarian. And they'd bring me back something and they'd put shrimp on top of it. I'd say, I'm vegetarian. They couldn't get the idea meat to them was only beef. They didn't understand that any beef, fish, whatever. Wasn't eating them at that point. So a vegan does not eat any food derived from animals. In other words, they're not going to use eggs, they're not going to use milk, they're not going to use cheese, they're not going to use any of those products. But now what you hear is whole plant-based diet, and that's what Forks Over Knives is. And I thought theirs was interesting because it's whole, minimally processed foods. In other words, they're trying to get you to eat things as natural as you can. That doesn't mean that everything's raw, but they do a lot of salads with lots of fresh things in it, or bowls that have fresh things in it. It focuses on plants, including vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, seeds and nuts, which should make up the majority of what you eat. It excludes refined foods like added sugars, white flours, and processed oils. And they advocate organic whenever possible. So you have those 3 designations now that people tend to use. Lots of times people will say, oh, I'm a strict vegan. Well, that means they're not going to do any dairy. They're not going to do any eggs.
It also means they won't use honey.
Oh, yeah, they don't use honey also, that's right.
Yeah.
I call myself a vegan, but I'm not that far.
You're like me when I was a vegetarian, but I still eat Thanksgiving turkey. Go
Bible
figure.
talks about honey being good.
Part of what I wanted to tell you tonight, and I forgot, was that 87% of what all Americans don't eat, 87% of all Americans don't eat enough vegetables. They also don't eat enough fruit. It says about 1/2 of all American adults, 117 million individuals, have one or more preventable chronic diseases, many of which are related to poor quality eating patterns and physical inactivity. Which means that if we ate right and exercised more, we would be healthy. And I'm not a poster child for doing it right, obviously. Eating more fruits and vegetables adds nutrients to diets, reduces the risk of heart disease, stroke, and some cancers, and helps to manage body weight when consumed in place of more energy-dense foods. Now, this is a protein-dense food. Remember what I said, small quantities, not 3 meals a day. Okay.
Lorraine,
Yes.
isn't it interesting that the more studies they do, the more that society is now coming back to what God showed Ellen
Which is
White?
Genesis 1:29, which says, and God said, see, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed, to you, and it shall be for food. That was the first diet. That was the perfect diet that God gave Adam and Eve in the garden. And we have, through sin and degradation, gone downhill from there. But when we go back to that diet, or as close to that diet as we can come, our health improves. And it's important that we do that. Otherwise, golden years aren't golden years.
You know, I was raised on a little farm, and we were raised on meat and potatoes.
Yeah, me too.
And I'll tell you, I still eat a little meat occasionally, but I don't eat near what I did before. And I'll tell you, I feel so much better.
They're nice and puffy in there. Just what they're supposed to be doing. When they do that, and they'll puff up above the broth, and what I do, and you probably saw me doing it earlier, is I just kind of push them all down again and let them puff back up to above it for a little while. And I'll let it cook like that on a high heat, probably 20 to 30 minutes. Because I'm in the kitchen and I'm still doing stuff and I'm still watching it. But then when I'm ready to go off and do something else, I will turn it down to low and I'll just go off and leave it and it'll be fine. It'll just sit there and do its thing on low. Okay, so the resource list, back to our resource list. There's things here for forks over knives. This Gaia Chef was one that Harold sent me. And if you go to that link, you get 87 pages of recipes. Your own cookbook. I didn't think the church was going to be happy if I used up all their paper supply. So I figured you guys could, what I did with it was I've downloaded the whole thing onto my computer and I can just print off a page at a time as I want to use a recipe. The second little handout that you have there says how to make any recipe vegan and healthy. And this is from Forks Over Knives. And it tells you what you can use, things to use in place of eggs. You don't want to use eggs in a recipe, what can I use instead? And they give you 7 choices of things that you can use in place of them. Milk alternatives, butter substitutes, cheese alternatives. So there's, that's where I read about the gelatin and using agar. I knew it was something that I looked at today. And they even give you a recipe to try it out. So this is a good resource. Now you all know that we don't do the food pyramid anymore, right? We do the myplate.gov. You'd be amazed at the information that's on this website. And what was really cool was it has, this is my plate that says dairy, and there's a little link that you can go to, and it tells you what to do if you don't want to use dairy, what to substitute it with. It also tells you how to enjoy vegetarian meals, and it gives you some ideas on how to do vegetarian and still meet the criteria of what you're supposed to have on your plate. The idea of this plate is half of your plate is fruits and vegetables. A quarter of your plate should be grains. A quarter of it, well, it's a little less, yeah, I guess a quarter. This little section is supposed to be protein, and this is dairy, but you use dairy substitutes instead. Yes?
An interesting thing that I've read in a number of places now recently, and that is that contrary to popular opinion and contrary to what the dairy and meat industry would have you believe, if you have a good variety of vegetables every day, you get all the proteins you need.
Yeah. Yeah, the proteins are there if you know where to find them. And to get the complete proteins, you need to know what you need to pair with what. The Hispanics, beans and rice, the perfect protein when you put the two together.
And
What was that? I'm sorry.
Beans and rice.
Oh, yeah.
that is brown rice.
Yeah, brown rice.
South
Yeah,
American,
because it's not as
all
much
they-
nutrition.
South Americans, that's all
Yeah.
they eat.
Yeah,
And one of the things that they have discovered, I read probably a couple of years ago, they have discovered that you don't have to have that combination in one meal.
No, it's just that you get the, as long as you get all the amino acids.
Really?
We used to think, okay, you've got to have peanut butter on whole wheat bread in one meal to get your balanced protein, or the beans and rice in one meal. And what they have discovered is, no, the body stores up those amino acids long enough that it can pull together whatever it needs to make whatever amino acids, whatever proteins rather, your body needs.
Okay. So you have one that's 15 ways to get more fruits and veggies. And if you look at the bottom, it says www.foodandhealth.com. These people are amazing. They will send you emails. They will send you fun little things like little fun fact things about pears. That came from them as well. So I'm getting all these neat little emails now from all these people with all these fun things. The rest of your pile is all recipes. All the recipes from tonight are there, plus a few extras that I threw in. Like I said, the one that Pastor did on Sabbath, the Florentine Shells, that one is there.
One thing I'll mention about that is if you're making a 9x13 pan,
You need to double
you
it.
need 29 shells, and you still have a little leftover stuffing.
Okay.
So when they have this recipe and they say 20 shells, then you have about a quarter of your stuffing left over. So
Okay. So it actually makes more than it says it does.
So I couldn't fit more than 29
In a
the
pan. Yeah.
So that's a good number.
So lots of recipes for you guys to try. Gluten for you to try. And anybody that wants to take anything home from back there, they're more than welcome. Because there is a lot of food left. And thank you.
Lorraine,
Thank you.
I noticed that one of these recipes specifies Mori New. Do you want to explain the difference between that and the
The blocks in water.
Yeah, the blocks that you get.
The blocks in water, and Morinu is called Silkian. It has a different texture. And that is why it was used for the pie. I also have a cheesecake recipe that's made with Morinu tofu, a no-bake cheesecake. It's really good. I'll make that one for potluck next time.
Has a custard texture versus a crumble texture.
Yeah, the one has a crumbly texture. I have never been able, even with the softest of the blocks, get it to do the same thing. It's just basically a texture thing.
And it doesn't need refrigeration.
It doesn't need refrigeration, yeah. They come in aseptic packs. Although it's funny because Winco keeps it in their refrigerated section. They evidently don't know that. Or else they just want to keep it with all the other similar type items that people would buy. But that, if you are looking for Morinu, if you are looking for Silkian tofu, if you see a recipe that asks for Silkian tofu, they're talking about Morinu. They're the only ones I know that make it.
Yeah.
And the only place I have found it here is at Winco. And it's at the end of the vegetable section where they have all the health foodie type things.
I think
the
Natural
vegetarian
Grocers
stuff.
has it. I think I've got.
Do they? Oh, I haven't been to
I
Natural
think
Grocers, so I haven't.
If I remember
Can't
right, I've
speak
picked
to
it
their-
up at Natural
sorry.
Grocers before.
I shouldn't say they're the only then. But,
I've seen it somewhere else, but I can't remember
yeah,
where.
because I was looking for it,
There are other
and I
places.
couldn't find it, and then Elaine was the one who told me that Winco had it, and I went looking for it, and sure enough, they did. Any other questions before we're done? Pastor, would you like to do a closing prayer for us?
Sure. Father in heaven, we thank you for the fact that you have created these different foods for us. And as we explore more and more about them, the things that you've created and how beneficial they are for our bodies, and we just pray that as we continue to try things that we will find things that will make us healthier. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I would like to thank Lorraine for the many, many, many hours of hard work that she put into this. Thank you so much, Lorraine.
Amen.
Yeah, hopefully it will be a little easier next time. Our next one will be around the end of January, and we will start a series of them then. This was just to try and be a little introduction into it before we got too far away from our people that we met at the fair. But, and we will go by topics and subjects on the ones after. Yes?
You were going to have a drawing.
Oh, yes.
And-
Somebody want to bring me the basket?
I think next time you should offer a gift if you bring someone from the community.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That you motivate. And shake those up, because mine was on the bottom.
So we have 2 cookbooks to pick from tonight. I have some others, but these are the 2 for tonight.
Turned upside down.
This one is by Forks Over Knives, and it's called The Complete Pant Plant-Based Cookbook for Beginners. And this is one of the Mitchell sisters' books. I have a different one, not this particular one, but I like their recipes. They're very tasty and very nice. I have the one that's for cooking for 2, which is nice because there's only 2 of us. So, the first person I draw gets to pick, the other person gets what's left.
I never win anything.
Deneen.
Hey!
Yeah.
I'll take the sister's one.
The sisters one, okay. And Monique.
Are you sure it's not Melinda?
Oh, come on, she'll share.
Pretty
You'll
close.
share, right? Thank you so much.
She'll share.
So if you come next time, you go back in the pot for another cookbook. So
Oh, you mean we don't get to try next time?
No, everybody goes back in the pot.
Oh, okay, put us back.
But if they won, they go back in?
Sure. As long as they keep coming, they keep having the chance.
So if we come next time, can we put in a second card?
No.
Lorraine,
Yes.
your statement should not be if you come next time. It
Oh,
should be
when you come
next time.
next time. Okay, you get a chance again. Thank you to all the ones who helped me get things together and made things, and I have to admit to being a little overwhelmed with this one, but I do appreciate all the help.
Thank you,
Very
because
very
Thank you.
a couple of us did really push you to do this.
Yes, because I wasn't planning
I'm not
on
going to name names. On the one,
one in particular.
One in particular.
One in particular wanted, that came up with the idea.
But thank you, Pastor, it was, I love it.
But there are pumpkin pies that need to go home with somebody because they don't need to go to my house. There are, we eat too much food as it is. I don't need all this to go home. So anything that anybody wants to take home, if you want to take home one of my pans full of something, take it home.
Thank you for recording for the people that wanted to
Is
be
that
here
on?
and couldn't be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's off. No.